Power today doesn't always march in with soldiers, it often walks in with a signed export deal. In the new global order, weapons are not just tools of war, they're tools of diplomatic leverage. And India, once a chronic importer, is now stepping into the spotlight as a producer, partner, and provider. From advanced missiles to multi-role jets, India is using arms not just to defend itself, but to build alliances, open doors, and send signals. Every missile sale, every jet partnership, every naval exercise is now a strategic handshake. It's not about aggression. It's about presence. India isn't playing the old game of threats. It's playing the new game of trust backed by firepower, a form of diplomacy where strength doesn't scream, it speaks softly, but clearly. For over 60 years, India was the world's top arms importer. From MiGs to Sukhois, from Scorpion submarines to Israeli drones, our security depended on foreign decisions, foreign timelines, and foreign politics. But in the last decade, the script has flipped. With Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, India committed to cutting its import dependence by at least 50%. The results are visible and strategic. The Tejas light combat aircraft now flies missions over Indian skies, and is being pitched to countries like Argentina and Egypt. The Akash surface-to-air missile system is already exported to Armenia and eyed by Southeast Asia. The Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher, developed by DRDO and manufactured by Indian firms, is battle-ready and export-grade. Indigenous warships like the INS Vikrant and INS Visakhapatnam are symbols of growing naval autonomy. India has set a target of 35,000 Indian rupees crore in annual defense exports by 2025, a 10x jump in under a decade. This isn't just manufacturing. It's a quiet revolution, turning India from a buyer dependent on others, into a builder trusted by many. Perhaps the most iconic symbol of India's new arms diplomacy is the Brahmos missile system, a joint Indo-Russian development that has redefined regional deterrence. With a speed of Mach 2.8 to 3.0, a range of 450 kilometers and increasing, and the capability to be launched from land, air, sea, and submarine platforms, Brahmos is not just fast, it is feared. The watershed moment came in 2022, when the Philippines became the first foreign customer, signing a deal worth over $375 million to acquire the Brahmos for coastal defense. It wasn't just a defense transaction, it was a geopolitical signal. In Southeast Asia, where tensions simmer over the South China Sea, the deal marked India's strategic entry as a defense provider that offers quality without coercion. Today, Vietnam, Indonesia, Brazil, and even Middle Eastern countries are exploring similar purchases. And each export is a missile wrapped in a message that India can provide cutting-edge capability, backed by stability. While Brahmos represents India's export capacity, the Rafale deal signifies its upgraded import diplomacy. When India inked the 36 aircraft deal with France, it wasn't just buying planes, it was embedding itself into the Franco-Indian strategic matrix. The Rafales, equipped with Meteor missiles and advanced radar, dramatically enhanced the Indian Air Force's strike range and air superiority. But what was equally important was the interoperability, the training exchanges, the deep tech cooperation, and the trust that came with it. France has since become a crucial defense partner, not just in the air, but also in the Indian Ocean, space, and cybersecurity. The Rafales, in that sense, were a door, not a destination. In today's diplomacy, trade builds goodwill, but defense builds trust. When a country buys your weapons, they're not just buying hardware. They're buying reliability. They're placing their security, their sovereignty, in your hands. India understands this. And that's why its defense exports have become a powerful diplomatic lever. In 2014, India's annual defense exports stood at just 1,940 Indian rupees crore. By 2024, that number had surged past 21,000 Indian rupees crore, a tenfold rise in just a decade. And it's not just about volume. It's about where and why. Armenia, in the midst of tensions with Azerbaijan, turned to India for Pinaka rocket systems and anti-tank missiles. The Philippines, wary of growing Chinese pressure, became the first foreign buyer of the Brahmos missile system. Vietnam, Egypt, and Indonesia are in active talks for systems like Akash, Tejas, and Brahmos. Even African nations like Mauritius and Seychelles rely on Indian patrol vessels, training, and radar systems. These are not just deals. They are defense relationships built on shared concerns, mutual respect, and the promise of non-interference. Unlike traditional arms powers, India's offer is different: capability without control, support without strings. In a world full of coercive alliances, India is building something rare: security partnerships built on choice. The Indo-Pacific isn't just a region, it's the epicenter of global power shifts. Home to over 60% of the world's population, and accounting for 2/3 of global trade, it is where China asserts, the US rebalances, and India rises, quietly, but strategically. For India, the Indo-Pacific is more than a maritime concern, it's a geopolitical canvas. One where diplomacy moves through frigates, submarines, and missile deals. India's response to China's aggression hasn't been provocation, it's been presence. Through the Sagar Doctrine, security and growth for all in the region, India supplies naval patrol vessels, radar stations, and training to island nations like Mauritius, Maldives, and Seychelles. The Brahmos deal with the Philippines wasn't just about coastal defense, it was a signal that India stands with nations asserting their maritime sovereignty. Joint naval exercises like Malabar, with the US, Japan, and Australia, Milan, and bilateral drills with Indonesia and Vietnam showcase India's growing maritime muscle and its commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. India isn't trying to dominate these waters. It's trying to stabilize them through cooperation, capability, and calm deterrence. Because in the Indo-Pacific chessboard, power isn't about shouting the loudest. It's about being consistently present, visibly reliable, and strategically silent until necessary. India's arms diplomacy isn't just about projecting power, it's about producing it. And that production is no longer limited to state-run factories behind barbed wire. It's a full-fledged ecosystem now, powered by DRDO, HAL, private defense firms, and a growing network of startups and tech innovators. Under the Make in India initiative, India has launched over 350 industrial licenses to defense manufacturers. The target is bold: 35,000 Indian rupees crore in annual defense exports by 2025, and the momentum is real. HAL's Tejas fighter jet is now a serious contender for exports to Argentina, Egypt, and Malaysia. The Akash missile system, already inducted into the Indian Air Force, is being marketed to Southeast Asia and Africa. Indigenous warships, drones, and surveillance systems are being showcased at defense expos from Abu Dhabi to Nairobi. Private players like L&T, Tata Advanced Systems, Bharat Forge, and Solar Industries are building everything from artillery to propulsion systems. Startups are entering the space with innovations in loitering munitions, AI-powered surveillance, and combat drones. This is no longer just a public sector story. It's a national mission. India is not just making weapons for its own safety. It's making systems the world can trust and selling security with sovereignty intact. Because when you build at home and sell abroad, you're not just exporting products. You're exporting credibility. In the world of defense, who you build with is just as important as what you build. India understands this. That's why it's not going solo, it's forming a new axis of cooperation, one rooted in technology, trust, and long-term alignment. Across continents, India is co-developing next-generation military platforms with old partners and new allies. With the United States, India is now manufacturing jet engines with GE for fighter aircraft, a game-changer in aerospace self-reliance. With Israel, it has co-developed systems like the Barak 8 air defense missile, and now collaborates on anti-drone and cyber warfare technologies. With France, beyond the Rafales, India is sourcing aircraft engines, Scorpion submarines, and potentially partnering on next-gen stealth platforms. And with Russia, despite geopolitical tensions, India continues vital projects like AK-203 assault rifles, Brahmos enhancements, and S-400 air defense integration. These aren't just transactions, they're technology transfers, joint IPs, and capability-building efforts that strengthen not just military muscle, but diplomatic depth. Because when you co-build with a country, you don't just share machines, you share strategic timelines, logistics chains, and mutual accountability. This is how India is rising, by building a defense network, not just a defense force. By turning every partner into a stakeholder in its security story. And that story is no longer regional. It's global. In the global arms market, smaller nations often face a tough choice: align with a superpower and inherit its baggage, or stay defenseless. But India offers a third path. A path of asymmetric empowerment without domination. When countries like Armenia, Vietnam, or the Philippines choose Indian defense systems, they aren't just picking missiles. They're choosing strategic breathing room, the ability to resist pressure without becoming anyone's pawn. India doesn't impose ideology. It doesn't demand military bases. It doesn't ask for loyalty in return for firepower. Instead, it offers something rare: capability without control, technology without takeover, friendship without fear. That's why nations increasingly trust India with their most sensitive security needs, not because of its size, but because of its stance. In a world of power blocks, India stands as a balancer. In a world of coercive alliances, it offers dignity with defense. This is arms diplomacy, not as a show of force, but as a quiet revolution of strategic respect. And for many nations seeking sovereignty in a multipolar world, that respect is more valuable than firepower itself. India's defense doctrine remains rooted in restraint, no first use, no expansionist ambitions, and a cultural preference for defense over domination. But in today's turbulent world, soft power alone is not enough. The world respects capability. And capability, when coupled with character, becomes credibility. From Brahmos to Tejas, from coastal radars in Africa to naval training in the Indo-Pacific, India is showing the world what responsible power projection looks like. This isn't arms race diplomacy. This is arms relationship diplomacy. India's flight in this domain has just taken off. And in a world that increasingly rewards quiet strength, it may just be the country that others look to, not to dominate, but to defend. Because in this new world order, the mightiest weapon is not the one you fire. It's the one that makes others trust you enough to never need to.